I just got to go get it. I just got to go get it. I'm not seeking any comfort. I haven't gotten it for whatever reason. It don't matter. I'm going to keep knocking on that damn door, and I'm going to keep working my ass off to make sure that it happens. So my job this year is to make sure that we take care of the business that needs to be taken care of today to help us to achieve the goal down the road. But then it's time for me, when presented, to just go and get the job. In reality, yes, it is tough, but I don't let that keep me from doing what I do. I'm still alive, I'm breathing, and I have an opportunity to work with a championship team. So that's the beauty of it. And so the thing about it, like I said, I don't seek any comfort. I don't want any pity, because this is who I am. I'm going to keep pushing, keep knocking, because when it's all said and done with, I know who I am, and I am comfortable with the person that I'm striving to be.
Eric Bieniemy, Chiefs offensive coordinator, who continues to wait and wait and wait for a head coaching opportunity. It's one of the great mysteries in the NFL. Why hasn't Eric Bieniemy gotten hired? I tried to get to the bottom of it earlier this year. You never quite know if people are telling you the truth. I don't know. I really don't know. And one thing I thought was very telling, Peter, he was in Minnesota from 2006 with Brad Childress into 2010 as running backs coach, eventually assistant head coach. And I don't think the Vikings even looked his way. And the Wilfs know him from the time that he was there. Now, maybe the association with Childress is fatal. Childress, the worst coach in team history, not named Les Steckel, frankly. But they didn't even consider him. And they know him. They employed him. They issued paychecks to him for 5 years. I thought that was kind of strange. But I just don't know what it is and why it is and how it is. But when you look at that Andy Reid coaching tree and that pipeline and the people who have gotten opportunities, some have worked and some haven't, it's just stunning that Eric Bieniemy still is waiting.
Here's the thing, Mike, that I would tell you, that I sensed a sentiment by some people in the NFL this past year. Not necessarily all teams that wanted coaches, but I sensed a sentiment that, okay, we've really had a few long looks at Eric Bieniemy. He's had a lot of interviews. For whatever reason, he hasn't gotten a job. And the effort to increase the number of minority coaches, particularly black coaches in the NFL, just can't focus on one person. We need to have a wider net right now. And that wide net, in my opinion, this coming year is going to start to look at different people. It's already started to look at different people. And I believe this year, two of the hot minority/black coordinators are going to be Marcus Brady, the Indianapolis offensive coordinator, and Aaron Glenn, the Detroit defensive coordinator, both of whom at the NFL's Accelerator program early last week in Atlanta, where they brought together 60-some-odd minority coaches and minority front office people to basically meet the 32 owners and decision makers in the NFL. That two of the people who I heard came away as having been very impressive there were Marcus Brady and Aaron Glenn. And I don't mean to diss in any way Eric Bieniemy. He's an excellent candidate, and we're not in the interview, so we don't know. But the only thing I would say is I think it's wrong for the movement if the movement still focuses heavily on one person, Eric Bieniemy. I think you've got to look at 15 minority candidates right now, and he should be one of them. But you can't get stuck saying, well, we have to bring in Bieniemy. No, you don't have to bring in Bieniemy. You have to bring in the people who you think are going to get the best chance to show for this job. And if one of those Bieniemy, great. But if it isn't and you think other people are better candidates, bring in the other people.
It's hard not to wonder whether at some point the sun just naturally sets on Eric Bieniemy's opportunity, because no one's going to want to be the one to hire the guy who's been passed over so many times. There's always going to be somebody hotter on the list. As you've mentioned, the names like Marcus Brady and Aaron Glenn, new names emerge who have greater sizzle, who are fresher. And, you know, there's that element to this sport that is inescapable, even though there are laws against age discrimination, too. Eric Bieniemy, wrong side of 50. You find other candidates, regardless of race, regardless of background, who are in their 30s or 40s. Sometimes owners will gravitate in that direction. That dynamic rarely gets discussed, but Bieniemy is going to find himself on the short end of that stick potentially as well. Moving forward. Peter, one other thing, too, to mention. The NFL quietly last week adjusted the windows for interviewing candidates, specifically coaches who are with other teams. They need to have a certain number of days to prepare in advance of an interview, and no interviews, sit-down interviews with coaches who are working for other teams who are in the playoffs until after the wild card round. So no more interviews being rushed in that first week after the season ends of guys who are coaching teams that are in the playoffs. Everything has to wait until after that wild card round, which I know that you're a proponent of pushing it all until after the Super Bowl. Tony Dungy is as well. This is at least a step in that direction of slowing it down, giving guys a chance to breathe, giving guys a chance to prepare, and not rushing through it.
I'll make one point about that. That doesn't mean that if you have a wild card game on Sunday and you know that Tuesday morning at 7 a.m. at the airport hotel 3 miles from your facility, you're going to have the biggest job interview of your life. Do you honestly think that on Friday, when you drive home from the facility, that you're not spending 3 hours on the phone with guys who you want to be on your staff? Do you honestly think that on Saturday, when you should be resting and you should be taking time focusing solely on your team, you're not focusing solely on your team. You're much more interested, and you go home, hey, what do you think of the school system in City X? Where would we live? What's happening? I mean, it's wrong. It's just wrong. And I understand it would be unfair to some really bad teams to not have a focus about where your team is going until February 20th, maybe. I get that. I understand. Tough cookies. This entire program should be put off till after the Super Bowl.
You know, I resisted that, and I still think there's a place to do it before we get to the Super Bowl, but it's one of the very real factors. It does dilute. And one of the coordinators that was up for a job disputed that this year. Baloney. Every minute you spend preparing for, thinking about, doing anything other than getting ready for the next playoff game, that's a minute that is taking you away from what your primary obligation should be.
Or going to bed at 7:30 one night because you're absolutely, totally exhausted from the work you've put in to prepare for this game. But no, you don't go to bed until 1 o'clock because you're preparing your presentation, for a few days later, or you're calling people to see who can I get to be my coordinators. That is as big as anything else.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.